Hey guys, welcome to What If, the segment of Halloween Horror World where we talk about mazes that could possibly happen, but most likely probably won't. So, we like to explore all the possibilities. What would they be like? What if this certain IP or franchise or subject becomes a maze? What would it be like? What would the scare actors be like? We're going to explore that. And today on the first episode, we'll be doing it based on a video game that's actually been requested quite a bit, much to behest of some people, much to the joy in some people. It's a mixed bag. It's Five Nights at Freddy's. Now, I myself, I didn't really get into the game. I played it, of course. I mean, who hadn't really? But it wasn't until I found out more about the backstory and the lore of the game itself that I started really to appreciate it more. There's a lot of disturbing history behind the game. It's not just simply animatronics just attacking you and popping out. There's actually a really cool backstory to it. So for me, it's a very meh. I like I said, I really enjoy the backstory. The game's very simple but very frightening. And due to its popularity, it's been taking the Let's Play segments on YouTube by storm. It's been quite popular with a lot of gamers. And of course, with that popularity, it has garnered some wants to be at Horror Nights. Now, again, this is probably an IP that will never happen. It's an indie project that hasn't really... It's not as big as, say, Resident Evil or Silent Hill, so it would probably fly under the radar of whoever's show running Horror Nights, in this case John Murdy and Mike Aiello. I don't think they'd probably see it as a maze type attraction. But saying that, here on What If, we explore what if Five Nights at Freddy's became a maze. So let's start off with the location, and I will be using the example of John Murdy. For example, John has 3 rules before he picks a maze. Is the franchise or IP viable? Is it popular? Is the locations easy to replicate in a live event? And third and finally, can the characters be replicated in a maze environment? Now, Five Nights actually ticks off all these. I said that the IP is not as big as Resident Evil, but that doesn't mean it's not popular. It is incredibly popular with a lot of people. It's garnered so many theories about the game and its backstory, from game theory to amateur YouTubers talking about its backstory. So it's quite popular, and it's still a talking point even to this day. So that garners that ticks off the first point that John has set out. Number 2, can the locations be recreated? Well, a lot of these locations are very simple. If you watched any of the gameplay and you've seen some of the locations, they're in a pizzeria. These locations, Horror Nights has had a lot harder to do than simply a pizzeria. And it's not just singly, not a singular location either. There's actually 3 locations, quite different and altogether from each one. And third, can these characters be replicated in a live event? Let's face it, Universal doing mascot costumes, they do it all the time. They've done it with The Simpsons, they've done it with Woody Woodpecker. They know how to make a giant suit. Essentially, all they have to do for Five Nights at Freddy's is just horrify them. Essentially make them look worn, torn, and animatronic. I mean, heck, they did Megatron and Optimus Prime. I don't see them really having a problem doing Bonnie, Chica, Freddy himself, Golden Freddy, the puppet. I don't see them having any trouble replicating them. So let's start off with the locations. I mentioned that there are actually 3, and there are. Even though Five Nights 1 is the first in the series, it's actually a sequel to Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and they're 2 pizzerias. So the third one is actually not a pizzeria. It's made to look like a pizzeria. but it's actually a horror maze. Horror maze? Yes, Five Nights at Freddy 3. Five Nights at Freddy 3 actually takes place in a horror attraction, which is fitting considering we're talking about putting Five Nights at Freddy in a horror type maze, in a maze environment. So let's talk about these locations. Well, with the first one, it's the way I would set it up, and I will do this step by step, so I'll go into detail. I would actually start with Five Nights at Freddy 2, kind of set up the lore a little bit, maybe have some like newspaper clippings around the front of the maze so people can have a look at them, like the 5 kids disappeared, bodies still not found, the newspaper clipping that says horrible odors are coming from inside the suits, that the purple guy, and for those who don't know, is the murderer, and you see that in the game. All the game's recreation of the past about the murders and that is done in 8-bit. And we know that the murderer is called the purple guy because he's a pixelated man in purple who we think was a security guard that works at Freddy's Fazbear Pizza. So you could have all these newspaper clips about him, the murderer, getting away with it. No bodies were found. Horrible odors coming out of the suits because that's where he stuffed the kids. And you could have this to introduce the pizzeria, and then you go into the second one, where because it's a large little environment, maybe start from the back area and make your way into the pizza room where different animatronics come out to attack you. Maybe walk through Foxy, which is the one animatronic that actually runs at you. It's a pirate fox, essentially, with a hook on its hand, runs out and attacks you. And essentially, you keep moving along, and it kind of integrates with the environments of 2 and 1, still retaining that pizzeria until finally you make it through into the security guards setting, the office, where most of the game takes place. Again, a lot of the security cameras are how you see around the building. So once you get there, you actually see on the security cameras all the animatronics move around. This is pre-recorded footage from probably someone from the maze probably took some footage, and you can actually watch as the animatronics are moving around. And then maybe Freddy attacks you at this point. And as you're moving on from there, as you get to the end of the pizzeria, the puppet attacks you from behind a corner somewhere, or above. Actually, that would work really well. Having, if we're talking about Hollywood, maybe have a little ledge or a little raised area to have the puppet attack you. Maybe Mangle, which is a different version of Foxy, to attack you. And as you're moving along, you hit Five Nights 3, where you end up in the horror attraction, where the only suit that they were able to recover to authenticate the attraction at Freddy's Fazbear Horror Maze is a suit called Springtrap. Now, this is significant because the purple guy, in order to escape the ghosts of these deceased children now inhabiting the animatronics, he hides in the Springtrap costume, which ends up, he after mocking the ghosts, the mechanisms all fail, and basically the framework just impales him, and that's how he meets his end. Essentially, his soul is trapped in the Springtrap. So as you're moving through the maze, you get attacked from Springtrap in different areas, and then having the phantom versions of the old characters. So they're basically the same characters but darker colors, very shadowed, basically silhouettes of what they used to be. They all attack you and they push you through the maze until you get to the final security guard area where it's on fire, because in night 5 it's assumed that the security guard actually burns down the attraction to end the madness. So in this final conclusion, Springtrap attacks you for one final scare, pushing you out the maze. So this flames all going around, simulated flames, kind of like what they did with Evil Dead. This final area, and that pushes you out the maze. Obviously, there will be a lot more. I mean, this is just off the top of my head, planning what the maze would be like. So let's talk about the characters a little bit. Now, we've touched on some of them briefly. We've got Freddy in the back. We've got Chica, the chicken. We've got essentially Bonnie the rabbit. So there's a few other characters like Foxy. I've touched upon as Pirate Fox. All of these are inhabited by dead children. But some of their, obviously the movements would be very animatronic, attacking you through the maze, and very stiff, very like kind of jerky movements. So that's how I would see this maze being pulled off, and it's actually one of the few IPs that I've heard that actually could work in a maze environment, but I don't think would actually happen. So that's what if Five Nights at Freddy's was an actual maze. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. There's more to come. And again, I'm trying to make this a very interactive show, so after every episode of What If, including now, just leave a comment in the comment section below, and maybe it'll be the next maze or IP that I could talk about that could possibly be a maze. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this, and this is kind of an experiment to see how it goes, and if you guys have enjoyed this and want to see more, what kind of mazes would you guys like to see in your wish list? So until the next time, this is the Crazy Englishman signing off.